Chapter 5. Now it came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel, and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near, and touched the top of the scepter. Then said the king unto her, What wilt thou, Queen Esther? And what is thy request? It shall be even given thee to the half of the kingdom. And Esther answered, If it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, Cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther hath said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half the kingdom it shall be performed. Then answered Esther and said, My petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king hath said. Then went Haman forth that day joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless Haman refrained himself, and when he came home he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh his wife. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches, and the multitude of his children, and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes and servants of the king. Haman said moreover, Yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared but myself, and tomorrow am I invited unto her also with the king. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Then said Zeresh his wife and all his friends unto him, Let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king, that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. We see here the courage of Queen Esther. She puts on her royal robes. She goes to the inner chamber, which would have been the throne room, and she appears before the king. And the king is thrilled to see her. And he extends forth the golden scepter and holds it towards her, so that when she comes close to him, she can touch the end of it, which does two things. It signifies her acceptance of him as her king, her master, her lord, her husband. And secondly, that she has a special request to make of him. And he offers, what would you like, Queen Esther, even up to half of the kingdom. Obviously, he's quite prepared to share everything he has with her equally, which was not something that very often happened under any circumstance with any king anywhere in recorded history. And the request basically is that the king and Haman come to a banquet that she's going to have. And obviously Haman isn't there. The king sends directions that Haman should hurry up so that they can go to Queen Esther's banquet. And they get there, and it's a banquet of wine. Now, the reason for the banquet of wine was probably because Queen Esther knew that the king liked wine. That's how his liking of wine, and having had a banquet of it for 7 days, and asking Queen Vashti to come and present herself to him and all the other princes after 7 days of drinking wine, was the reason she got to be queen. Well, at least part of the reason she got to be queen. So she understood that that was probably a worthwhile thing to do. And as well, that if she presented the king with numerous wines that he might not have tasted from various parts of the kingdom, that it would probably be interesting to him and pleasant to him. And then she could ask him for another favor, which she did. He offered again, what would you like? And she said, well, I'd like you to come tomorrow night, you and Haman, to come again tomorrow night to another banquet, which I will hold, and then I will tell you what my special request is. Well, he'd already had one banquet of wine that he probably liked very much and liked being in her presence, and so coming again the next night to another banquet probably wasn't such a bad idea. If she had come out directly and accused Haman of trying to kill her and all the Jews, it would have been a little bit tough, because this Haman was the number one trusted man and king's highly favored individual. So she had to get the king feeling good towards her. And so Haman heads home, happy. And he gets home and he calls his friends together and he recites how much money he's got and how the king favors him and all the rest of this. And then he says the only problem he's got, none of this really matters to him, because this Mordecai, this Jew fella, that won't bow down before him. I mean, everybody else does. He says, you know what? And his friends and his wife basically tell him, put up a gallows, make it 50 cubits high so you can hang this guy from up high. And then when you got the gallows done, you can look after this, and then you can go and have this banquet with the queen and the king, and everything will be happy and hunky-dory. He thinks that's a really good idea, so he orders the gallows to be built, assuming, of course, that everything's going to go the way he plans, which isn't usually what happens for us. Things very rarely go exactly the way we plan, and as Haman was about to find out, his life was about to take a bunch of interesting turns that weren't anywhere in his plans. Interesting how the Lord can sort of turn things around sometimes.